Hello and welcome to the Wolves Report. I'm Ryan Lester. Thank you for joining us for episode 120. Flanking me tonight, I am delighted to be joined by Chris Tyler and Mark Knock, who are both going to tell me about last night's game where it finished Wolverhampton Wanderers 2, Aston Villa 0. And just in case you forgot how it ended, these are the scenes near the final whistle. Lovely stuff. Nocky, you were there last night. Talk us through Wolverhampton Wanderers 2, Aston Villa 0.
It was a performance to be proud of, I think, first and foremost. We've had conversations recently about the effort, the work rate. Was it there? There was absolutely no questioning that. It felt like a different performance than we've seen over the last few weeks. They were angry, they were spiteful, they were throwing themselves into tackles, they were in Villa's face, they were pressing higher up the pitch. They just seemed to really want to win that game, and the desire was there, and the fans, were reacting to that. The atmosphere in Molineux was probably as good as I've seen it this season, and probably in most of last season as well. It was just a real good workmanlike performance. My only disappointment really is that we didn't kill the game off by half time, because I thought we created enough chances to have been 3, maybe 4 goals up. I don't think anyone could have complained, but both halves were very good. The first one, we were all over them, we're ripping them to pieces, and then the second half was a very professional, disciplined performance. And I was a little bit nervous at half time, because I know we were at Villa Park and we were in control in the first half in that game, and Unai Emery made some tactical tweaks, made a few changes, and Gary O'Neill couldn't cope with it second half, and you knew they would improve. Which they did. They were better second half, but we kept them at arm's length and we kept our shape really well. And I think there's probably 1, maybe 2 real saves that Sarr's made in the whole game, and that's against a Champions League side. And yes, they've got a couple of injuries, but we know that we're missing key players as well. So it was a really good, honest performance to be proud of, I think, and they deserve all the credit, because there was a lot went into that, and there's been a lot of difficult, disappointing afternoons. So to put in a performance like that and to really give us something to hold on to now is credit to them. They've done us proud.
Tyler, at the end of last week's show, I joked that your prediction was 3-0, and it turned out your joke that didn't exist was almost correct. But as Nocky said, I mean, Villa have talked about having hard luck with a disallowed goal, when actually Villa were lucky that wasn't 4 or 5.
Yeah, I was concerned that, Villa fly out the traps, don't they? West Ham, they did. Celtic, they did. It's sort of a strength of theirs that they sort of steamroller teams. And it was actually us that did it to them, which was pleasantly surprising. And on with Nocky, it was like an old-fashioned performance, wasn't it? It was guts, it was thunder. I tweeted earlier in the day, and it might have done the trick around, watching Forest and how they played with passion, desire, energy. And I thought we were exactly the same. I thought we were brilliant. And like Nocky said, it's the best we've been for a long time, both as supporters and as a team. But, some of the players in the team had a bit of a point to prove, didn't they? Pereira's happy to come out and be open with his comments around certain players. And he sort of said on Friday, Bellegarde can't play in the 2. And I think he's proved that wrong. So sometimes it's good to see that, isn't it? We talked on here, you don't always want stuff coming out in public, but it obviously worked on this occasion. And we'll go on to the players, but I thought they were immense, really. I couldn't see anyone below a 9, 8 or 9, really. I thought everyone was superb. And it gives you that lift, doesn't it? It's been horrendous, hasn't it? Let's be honest. And we've still got some tough games coming up against the big boys. Liverpool is next, so it's always nice to beat one of the smaller teams, isn't it, when you can, and take the positives.
Lovely stuff. Nocky, it was, you're talking about having a sneaky, and I genuinely believe there was an opportunity to beat Aston Villa because of obviously their European record, and sometimes you just feel it, and I really believe that was the case. But going on to talking about an identity, we've said for quite a while we don't really know who Vitor's Wolves are. Yesterday, I think we saw the vision of what he wants going forward, and for me, that's the best performance, not only under Vitor. I think it's the most complete Wolves performance I've seen as far back as I can remember.
Yeah, and Vitor deserves massive credit for that. It would have been very easy to change things. I was an advocate for maybe putting another midfielder in or changing Ait-Nouri and putting Rodrigo on that side, but he's been brave and he's stuck to his principles. So he's kept his same shape. He's kept his
even at 1-0 when we're under pressure.
Even at 1-0, he's kept to his beliefs. And how many times have we said that we're sick of worrying about other teams and changing to accommodate them? Whereas he said, no, I'm gonna do it my way, and that's exactly what he did, and we got the result. And I was with you a little bit. I felt there was a chance of a result. I didn't know if we'd win, but I thought there was a chance of a result because they're so poor after Europe. They've only beaten one team after playing in Europe, and that was us. Maybe there was a chance, but then missing Gomez and missing Larson as well, he takes away that a little bit. But I think for this game, it did us a bit of a favour not having Larson in the team, because we were able to play Guedes, and with Guedes, Cunha, and then Sarabia supporting, I don't think they could handle our pace. And they only had one recognised centre half in their team. They didn't seem to know who to track or who to follow. And I know Guedes missed some chances. I know we'll talk about the players in a little bit, but he was everywhere. His movement was good. He was getting himself into position. So it was just a well-organised, good, solid team effort with a bit of tactical nous to get us into those goal-scoring opportunities, and then to kind of batten down the hatches in the second half and weather the storm. So we've been not critical of Vitor, but I think there's rightly been some questions asked after the 4 straight defeats. But tactically, he got it spot on yesterday.
Yeah, it was very complete, Tyler. And Paul Somerset-Wolf makes a really good point here. The shutting down on Villa was immense. Yeah. The measured press, and we talked about this off air just before. I know Sarabia, I don't think he's a lazy footballer, but that I can't recall him ratting round doing the dirty side as much. We all know he's got a talent, but it was more obvious his work off the ball and his pressing, and him and Bellegarde, I thought, coming in were absolutely fantastic.
The press was really high. We were pressing into Martinez, and we didn't let them settle, and that was probably sensible, because they've got McGinn and they've got Rodgers, who are 2 very good players. That's a good Villa side, and you don't want to give them space to play, and we squeezed them. And I was a little bit worried about Andre without having Gomez next to him, but I thought he excelled, and Bellegarde comes into that position and he was absolutely sensational. So it was a game where, I think Tyler touched on it, everyone had a kind of 9 out of 10 performance. You can't pick a poor player, and if you're going to beat a team who are in the Champions League, we're pushing to get back into Europe, you need all of your players to believe and to get stuck in. But there was massive positives for us. Defensively, we looked really solid, and Totti coming back in kind of was the reason why we were able to move Agbadou back into the middle, and that gave us a real stability. And it was just, it all worked for us. It all worked for us. It's only 3 points, but it feels like 3 absolutely massive points, especially losing to 10 men last week. It's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Tyler, I just want to talk about what Nike said about Strand Larsen. I like Strand Larsen, but I think he played a lot of football, and he was worn, he was tired, and clearly his form was dropping the last sort of probably month or so. But playing against a team with a makeshift defence, it was probably better. We were fortunate that we played purist footballers, Cunha, Sarabia, Guedes, these guys that, have got a little bit more pace, a bit more ability, that can play the triangles and through balls. I actually thought that worked in our favour, not having him. And that's not a slight on Strand Larsen. I just think a makeshift defence would rather play against a centre forward than a load of guys that are going to cut you open again and again with pace.
I personally was at the point of taking him out of the team anyway. I think we've all agreed he's been flogged to death, and he just looked like he needed a rest, if you ask me. And I think the front three was so fluid in the way it could move. It gives you more pace. Some of the runs Guedes was making and getting in the positions, Strand Larsen wouldn't be able to do that. That's not his game. Yeah. And Ait-Nouri was high in supporting them, and Semedo as well. And Bellegarde obviously getting beyond them to score the goal. I mean, that stuff, I think Gomez and Andre are brilliant footballers, but it was nice to see your centre midfielder getting ahead of your strikers and scoring a goal. I mean, we don't do it anywhere near enough, do we? And I'd have gone with that front line anyway, in my opinion, even if he was fit, because I just think he needed taking out the firing line. And Guedes splits opinion, Sarabia does, but when they're on it, they're very, very fine footballers. And I'm pleased Sarabia got his assist and he worked hard. And I think Guedes was unlucky to not get a goal as well. And obviously Kuna did get his goal. So from the front three, you can't ask for much more than that. They were defending from the front, but then they had the quality when they were on the ball as well. I mean, the first half performance for me, I tweeted at halftime, the only disappointment, it wasn't 4-0 because we were that good. We blew them away. And, like Nocky said, it pretty much the perfect performance, really. I can't praise it any higher than that. I thought managers to the players, it was outstanding.
Yeah, it was really good. There's an interesting comment here from Steve Lee's Nocky. It says, getting stuck early on set the tone for the game and the atmosphere, gave us the effort and will bring the support in spades. And I think that's right. Molyneux was good. I think there was a Bellegarde challenge early on, and you were like, he's up for this. And obviously we know what Andre does, but there was a team that was pressing, they were snapping into tackles. I mean, we were concerned about Villa's 3 against Wolves 2, but you wouldn't have known because the energy was coming from Wolves, the press. Villa didn't get a second in that first half. And as Steve said, Nocky, when the team's like that, the atmosphere reflects it as well. And Molyneux was spiteful last night, and it was great.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the tackle he's talking about with Bellegarde, it was the most unnecessary tackle in the world. He only had to tap it out of play, but he flew in and absolutely smashed the ball out. And that gets the fans up then. And if you give the fans something to latch onto, they're going to back you. And we're not an unrealistic bunch. We know where we are in terms of the personnel available to us, and we're not expecting to smash teams 4 or 5-0. But you just want to see that fight and that effort, and you want to know that the team's willing to bleed for the shirt. And if they do that, then they're going to get backed. And Molyneux was great last night. The noise was fantastic. They were angry, it was up, we were singing, we were getting into them, and it was frustrating, and we was getting at them, and you could see they were a little bit rattled, and their flair players didn't seem to fancy it. So you're absolutely right. You get stuck in early, you let the fans know that you're up for it, you let them know you're up for it, and sometimes players can grow or wilt in that environment, and I think we certainly grew and they wilted.
Absolutely. Bueno adding energy and tempo in the first half was top notch. That's the standards we have to play to every single game. Paul also again with another comment says, how many times do you see us pairing up on their players to win the ball back and didn't give them a sniff? Yeah, it was the energy and the measured pressure. And I know people talk about pressing and sometimes it looks chaotic, but pressing for me is something you have to do measured and organised, because you can't just have players chasing everybody. There has to be a time when someone's on the half turn or they've got the back to goal. I think that's the basics of pressing then, and you're pressing twos and you squeeze. That first half was perfect. And as both Nocky and Tyler said, the only thing wrong was Wolves didn't get 2 or 3 goals, maybe even 4, because it was the first half performance was that good. Let's move on to the goal, Tyler. Now, Cunha picks the ball up, he plays it inside. I think Ged's played it to Sarabia. Sarabia picks it up. Bellegarde, we're not used to our centre midfielders running in behind. It was a proper Sarabia ball. We've seen him play that pass loads. He's got the vision to do that, and he's got the weight of pass. Bellegarde, we don't know because I've never seen him playing centre midfield, but it was such a beautifully worked goal, almost unstoppable, because when you said centre midfielders at full pelt, he timed it in behind the fullback. The pass was perfect, and we beat the world's best goalkeeper at his near post. It was beautiful.
If he's the world's best goalkeeper, I've not got ginger hair, but I think you can go back to before that, and I've watched the goal back a few times, and we actually start the move from Agbadu nipping in front of Watkins and winning the ball, and that just summarises where we're at with this performance, that it was front foot, it was aggressive. You don't want to throw Santi under a bus, for example, but I don't think that would have happened if he was playing in the middle of the 3 and Agbadu got there, nicked it, then Totti got on the ball, drove forward before it got to Kuna. So I think that was a big part of that goal. And then once it got to Kuna, the 1-2 touch passing, like you say, was delightful. And we've all said on here, if you can get Sarabia into those little pockets in those central areas, he can make stuff happen, can't he? And the pass was it was just inch perfect, wasn't it? It looks simple when you watch it, but to execute that at that level, perfect ball. And Bellegarde, like you said, we don't get midfielders in the box enough, scoring goals, getting beyond the striker. And I don't know if he meant it or he sort of double bluffed it. You'd expect him to go across the keeper because that's where
that's the textbook says hit it across the keeper, doesn't it?
And then he's just drilled it near post, and the pace on the ball, like you said, Villa fans, and I think Martinez himself sort of apologised, but when you're in the Premier League and you're 12 yards out and it's whipped to there, you're not saving it.
If
Great
any
goal,
footballer blasts the ball as hard as they can from that range and it
exactly.
goes perfectly at the near post, you're not saving it. So I'm not going to be. I don't really care if I'm critical about the keeper or not. I think it's a fantastically worked team goal, and it was a spectacular back to front really quickly. Obviously, as you said, Totti played his part. Moving away from the goal, obviously the scenes at the goal were amazing, Nocky. But moving away from the goal briefly, something that Tyler touched upon then, in terms of the switch that Agbadou to the middle of the three. Now, I thought that was to sort of negate what Ollie Watkins, who's one of the best channel runners in the Premier League. He did briefly, but then Agbadou pocketed him, and then he got to get subbed at half time because
I don't remember seeing him.
But Nocky. Agbadou put in the middle. It was a bit of a surprise. We kind of thought Santi might stay in the middle and Agbadou would go right and Totti would go left. But Agbadou in the middle, dominant, aggressive, fast. He made light work of Ollie Watkins, and there aren't many people that do that.
Yeah, I think if Villa want to sell Watkins to Arsenal, they're going to have to ring up Agbadou and get him released from captivity first, because he absolutely pocketed him. And Watkins doesn't go off injured, does he? And I'm not saying there's anything sinister, but he disappeared at half time, and he never got a kick. Agbadou's such a funny player. He's on the ball. He's a little bit scary because you're not sure what he's going to do, and he's capable of lumping it out of play. But out of possession, he's absolutely phenomenal. He's tackling, his positional sense, and a couple of times Villa got in. He got in behind the keeper, and he's on the line. He's just He was like a bit of a Willy Bolly Lescott hybrid, the way he was performing. He just seemed to have that energy, movement,
I like the way
pace,
he takes the
power.
space in front of him as well. When there's an opportunity to take 5 yards, he doesn't need two invitations. He will take it.
Well, like Tyler said, for the first goal, he takes out Watkins on the halfway line and then he plays it through to Totti, and Totti goes. And when you've got a centre half like that, it'll make your other centre halves around you better. And Doherty put in a sterling performance as well.
Doherty
so
good, yeah.
He just controlled Watkins, and when they made the change, I mean, they brought Marlin on, and Marlin's a good player. He's experienced, he's been around, and he got into a couple of opportunities, but nothing went through Agbadou. They had to pull wide, they had to go into the wide positions or strike from distance because he was just dominating that edge of the area. He was in full control, and to have a player who's come in and into a team that's leaking goals and have him perform at the level he's been performing at this season, I think he's outstanding. So I was very nervous when he came in. I was at Bristol, and I was, to be honest, I was hoping we kept the receipt to return him. But then when you see him the last couple of games, you can see the improvement, and he's a proper footballer. I was absolutely wrong about him when he first came in.
Yeah, we'll go on to individual performances, but just to finish on that section with him playing in the middle of the three, he has settled so quickly, Tyler. And you know what, I'm going to talk about him again in the player ratings, but I'm such a big fan of him. But he's settled into a three. Yes, you know what, he's a bit loose early on in his distribution, but for me, that's something that improves as the game goes on. You almost need about 15, 20 minutes because you don't really see him doing them passes later in the game. But the dominant force that he is, I mean, he's everything that we've not had for 2 or 3 years. A big physical centre-back that dominates any forward. I haven't seen him lose a duel there. I'm sure he'll lose one eventually, but he has pocketed every centre forward that's been within an inch of him. He's been fantastic.
Well, yeah, I don't think you need me to add anything really. I think you boys have covered it. I think we've talked about this, haven't we? We've said many a time, and I'm sure we'll come on to transfers about, 12 to 15 million pound players are out there, and he's one of them. And there are some jewels in these French leagues, Dutch league, Belgian leagues, if you can find them. And it's early days, and Knocker was right. His debut in the first league game, you're thinking, oh, crikey, like, can this guy kick the ball straight? But like you said, out of possession, I can't think of many Wolves centre-halves that have been better than him. And I know that's a big statement, but he just gives you that confidence that even if he's a yard off it, he's going to catch them up and tackle them and win it and muscle them off the ball. And I thought moving him centrally and giving him a bit more of that responsibility, he shone again. He went up another level. And I thought his distribution yesterday was superb, actually. Getting on the ball, passing it, moving it a bit quicker. Like you say, happy to get into the space.
I like the way he can zip a pass. He's not floating it yet. He'll ping it into the fit. I think he put one out of play, but So what?
Oh yeah, he's got to do that because that's what he does every week.
Yeah, he has a little warm up, as a warm up to give him a throw in, and that's his routine. But I am, for value for money centre back so far, he looks the absolute real deal. But we're talking about again when we do the player rating. So let's finish off. Agbadu, cult hero already. Noki, the second half was a little bit different to the first. Wolves were dominant in the first half. Quite a few of us, I think we said in the group chat, and people talk around at the game as well, that we were concerned that we hadn't killed the game off and Villa can't be that bad again, and we worried about it. And it was more of a pragmatic second half. We tucked in, but we trusted ourselves defensively to pick them off, and that's what we did. But credit to the defence and the shape and the shift of Bellegarde and the shift of Andre. Other than one proper save, what did Jose Sarr have to do?
Well, I think Emre is a very good manager. You know, you don't have the success he's had if you're not a good manager, and he was always going to make them better second half. That's why I wanted that second and third goal.
Have you ever seen 4 subs at half time before?
Yeah, but look, that's the difference, though, isn't it? I mean, I know they've got a couple of injuries, but they were able to bring on, 4 big players to affect the game, and they did affect the game. They were much better in the second half. They stopped the flow down the wings. They got a little bit of stability in midfield, and they pushed us back a bit. And we were relatively happy with that. We were happy to sit in our shape and ask them to break us down, and then if there was opportunities to break, we would. But they were a lot better second half, and they put us under pressure. But as you rightly say, I thought we managed it very well. There was a couple of chances where, they've hit a couple of long-range efforts. There was one where Marlin got through, and it was a good save by Sarr. There was the goal that was disallowed in the first half, but I don't think they were really. I never felt under too much pressure, although there was a lot of ball retention. But you know how good they are from set pieces. You're always thinking there's a good chance something will drop. But it was a professional, disciplined performance. We stayed brave and we stayed organised. We stayed compact, and we dealt with it, and we didn't try and prat around at the back like we have done in recent weeks or before Vitor came in. We were just lumping it away if we needed to, and then we reset, get back in our shape, and we were organised. And I think having Andre in front of the back 3 kind of screened us really well, and then you had the pace of Bellegarde to break when we could. 8-0 in Semedo tucked in really well. So it was just really disciplined. Everyone knew their job. Everyone knew what they needed to do, and everyone was just incredibly organised in the play. And we deserve to win that game. There's no question about that.
Great stuff, Noki. Tyler, before Wolves went on to seal the game, Villa had a disallowed goal, and I've tweeted about this, and I've obviously had a little bit of fun as well because I can't help myself. Now, there is a little bit of controversy to this goal. If that was against Wolves, I'd be pretty angry myself. However, if you come from an offside position and put your hand in somebody's back and stop them running, even if it's the slightest movement, the rules are the rules. Because originally, and a Villa fan has tweeted me about this earlier on, I think the linesman flagged for thinking the ball being put in the net was the offside bit, which it probably was. And if he doesn't flag, that goal probably doesn't get disallowed. However, the player has come from an offside position. You can see the still. He's put his hand in his back. It's harsh and it's a bit stiff, but that's offside.
Yeah, I think so. Just about, I think. And you're always going to be disappointed when those go against you. But the position of the Villa forward player behind Semedo, blocking him off, stops Semedo getting out to the ball quicker that's crossed in. So he's clearly impacting the game. He is. And that's, I think, why they stuck with that decision. If the linesman doesn't put his flag up, I don't think there's a way in a million years that it gets overturned the other way from VAR. And I think that just adds to the VAR debate, doesn't it, about what's the point of it, I think, if we're being honest. But
you should always get the same outcome, not because
yeah, exactly.
It's ridiculous.
Exactly that. And we're not getting that across the board, are we? In not just Wolves games, but every game, every week. So, you'd like to think offside is black and white, but sometimes it's still subjective, isn't it? But I'm with you. I think just about, for me, the right decision, because he's impacting Semedo. He's impacting his ability to get out to the ball before the cross is put in. So he's offside.
Yeah, Noki, I think it's the correct decision. From us all being like 40-somethings, we're probably, it's different from our era of football when it wasn't quite like a hand was going to be a foul, but it was offside. And my opinion, Noki, is I think if he doesn't play silly buggers playing the blocking, I think they score anyway. But they have to disallow it because it is offside, and we don't know if he's affected the game. But for me, his desperation to block Semedo has cost them an equaliser that would have probably stood if he's not touched him.
Yeah, Semedo switched off. I mean, it's probably the only time in the whole game he switched off, but he had switched off and they would have scored. But we've had much worse decisions than that go against us. And I think you're talking about the goal itself, but it was never a free kick anyway. I thought that was one of the worst refereeing displays I'd seen. Every time he went near a Villa player, he hit the deck. I mean, Konza must have hit the deck 5 or 6 times as soon as a Wolves player went near him, and he fell for it every single time. Every time he went near him in the corners, they were hitting the deck. Midfield, they were throwing themselves to the floor. So it wasn't a free kick in the first place, but that hasn't really been covered by Match of the Day or anybody else because it doesn't really fit the narrative, does it? But for me, it was an awful refereeing display. He's offside by the letter of the law, and we've been told, how many times have we had goals disallowed? You look at the West Ham one last season where the header's, clearly into the back of the net and he's given offside, and then we have the same one.
And yet the John Stones one with the Bernardo Silva push stand. So you need to make up your mind, lads.
Yeah, it's supposed to be swings and roundabouts. You go by the letter of the law, which is what we're told. He's offside, so I really don't know what they're moaning about. It was the same as the red card last week. He was studs up above the ankle. It's a red card. So, if you want consistency, then go by the letter of the law, and that's what they've done. So it's the right decision for me.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely the right decision. I wasn't going to talk about this, but there seems to be a thing in modern football, and some Wolves players do it as well. There seems to be this new thing that when someone gets to you, you throw yourself across the player and you get a free kick, and they fall for it every single time. Now, for me, Craig Dawson does this really well at Wolves. Craig Dawson's 6'2", and he's one of the strongest players we've got there. But he does it. And I saw it yesterday, as you mentioned, Konsa was doing it. McGinn did it more times than I could count. And they're waiting for the opportunity to stand next to you, to fall forwards when they're next to you. At what point does this get called out? Because it's not part of football, but it's become a trend that every referee falls for.
Yeah, I'm with Nocky. I thought the referee was really poor for both teams yesterday. Like you said, contact's not a foul. It's a contact sport.
Absolutely.
Like I said, these are 6 foot plus
prime athletes.
Yeah, and you look at I know the cons one you mean the first half, and you're just like, it's just not a foul. There's no it's not a free kick, and McGinn's obviously a master of doing it, and you benefit from it sometimes, and Wolves players do, but just because there's a hand on the back or there's a touch or something, it doesn't make it a foul. And I thought the referee had very little to no control of that game yesterday. And if they keep falling for it, then the players are going to keep doing it.
You're encouraging the dark arts, because if you're rewarding people with free kicks from... I'm not going to say...
The threshold's dropped, hasn't it? It seems the threshold to give a free kick now is basically any contact. But then... They do penalty reviews for VAR, and they say it's not enough contact, and it's just like you like Nocky said, where's the consistency? Nobody knows anymore. You can see a million times over what McGinn's trying to do. He backs his big arse in, he falls to the floor, and then he gets the free kick, and you're just sort of thinking, no, it can't be. But like you said, they keep rewarding that behaviour, so players will keep doing it.
The frustrating thing for me, though, and the biggest thing that winds me up, is there's at least 10 to 15 of those that he gave yesterday. If that's inside the penalty area, he doesn't give one. There's not a chance in hell any of them absolutely penalty. So how can you give it outside the box as a foul when you wouldn't give it inside the box as a foul? The problem is, but it's such an easy free kick to give, isn't it? The defender's in the corner, he's in a bit of trouble, he hits the deck. Every single time they're going to give it, whether there's contact or not, because it's an easy decision to make.
I don't understand it, though, because we can see from the stands, and some of the fans are completely apoplectic with it. It's like, it's infuriating. You know what's coming, and you're like, don't put a hand on him. And the player just dives on top of the ball, free kick. And it's like, come on, guys. You're professional referees. Surely you're watching what's happening here. There's not enough contact for an athlete, a fullback or a centre-back that's really strong and really fit and an incredible athlete just falling over. It's something else that stinks in football.
But this is where the game's gone, because we're now using a word every week, threshold. It's all I keep hearing now on commentary. Didn't meet the threshold to be overturned, to be a penalty. Since when has there been a threshold
It's
for
the
giving a
VAR
foul?
buzzword, isn't it? Really, just to get them out of trouble. To be honest,
It's the
that's how
world
it
we live
feels.
in. It's the way the game's going, isn't it? Oh, it hasn't met the threshold to overturn it, and you're just like, what am I listening to here? It's either a foul or it isn't. And Knock is right. None of them in a million years are given inside the box. None of those free kicks, and they're all. I mean, I think the first 20 minutes. How often was his whistle going?
It was
constant.
I felt like Villa knew they were tired and they were slowing it down, and they know we're vulnerable from free kicks and corners, and any opportunity in those areas to go down, they did. And you know what? As you said, it's the dark arts, and if you've been rewarded for it, you're going to carry on doing it. So why stop it? Because if we're good at something, I want us to carry on.
But it's just really
again and again and again.
It sums up how poor our officials are. I mean, you look at some of the rules that they choose to engage with, you know, these silly little fouls all over the place, but yet they'll let the goalkeeper hold the ball for 10, 15 seconds and they won't go
even
for
longer.
it.
20 seconds.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
6
They're
seconds
not.
Ball, isn't it?
It's a simple set of rules, letter of the law. You can do it, but what they do, they get sucked into a habit because no other referee blows when a goalkeeper's got the ball after 6 seconds. They won't do it because every referee blows when a defender goes down in the, you know, in the corner or inside the area. They won't do it either because that's what they need to do. That no one wants to step up above the rest and make a brave decision. And until you can be brave enough to stand out on your own and make those correct decisions, it's never going to change. But the standard of officiating is dreadful. I could probably count on one hand over the last 4 or 5 seasons, or probably since we're back in the Premier League, how many individual good refereeing performances I've seen, and it's getting worse.
I'd make a suggestion to this, and I think this would cut things out. Every time a goalkeeper is slowing it down, you get your warning, and the second time you do it, it's a corner because there's no deterrent. You slow it down, you take your booking, la da 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 da, and it's infuriating for the fans. You can see the game plan, the tactics. Okay, you've had your warning. We're going to give a corner. They'll soon start kicking the ball out. Now, maybe that's for another episode because I wanted to carry on talking about Wolves' brilliant win, but great chat and great. I just wanted to bring that in because it's something that is affecting the game that we love. Tyler, late on in the game, Wolves are still aggressive. A ball goes over the top. Konsa can't quite reach it. Cunha picks up the ball. He gets to the edge of the box. He looks tired. He cuts inside. He stops. He drops the shoulder again. They go the other way, and he fires it in the far corner. Wolves have won 2-0.
Yeah, it was a nice moment, wasn't it? And he's taken some flack, and probably rightly so, the last few weeks around his attitude or lack of it, shall we say. But lovely goal, wasn't it? I mean, I hope Konsa got his hot dog that he sent him for when he did the little step over from just outside the ground. But there's a lot of noise, and we'll talk about it, and you know, his contract and everything else. But there was no denying for me that was him getting close to back to his best in regards to effort, commitment, driving with the ball, and you know, like I said, he ran from inside his own half ultimately, and great finish across
in the 97th minute
from a
in the
tight
local
angle.
derby.
Yeah, so harder finish than it looks, to be fair.
Yeah,
and
he's made it look easy. The drop of the shoulder to send them both the other way. He's fantastic. It's such a natural ability. Yeah, it's fantastic. And it was a great end to the game. And I think it was no more than Wolves deserved. Gold tinted glasses or not, Wolves were the better side. And if Wolves hadn't have won, that'd have been a travesty and a typical of Wolves season. But they didn't. They remained strong and they got another clean sheet. You are listening and watching episode 120 of the Wolves Report with Chris Tyler, Mark Knock, and myself, Ryan Lester. Let's fly through the player ratings and plenty of other stuff I want to talk about as well. So we'll go through them quickly. Nocky's performance, Tyler, 9. Excellent. Jose Sarr, Nocky, not much to do. Everything he had to do, he did fine. Clean sheet, 8 out of 10.
Yeah. Before I talk about that, though, just going back to the goal, I think it summed up our game because it came from Santiago Bueno winning the ball off Rodgers, who threw himself to the floor, and for some reason that's apparently a foul, even though he won the ball. And then Hwang, who we've given a bit of stick to, fires it over the top. So that was us stepping out and engaging the defence.
Good point, great point.
In terms of Sarr, I thought he was very, very comfortable. They're good at set pieces, but he was solid. He was pretty dominant in that area. They've had a shot from distance, which he saved powder puff really, and then he's got himself out really quick for Malin when he's 1-on-1. Other than that, I don't think he had anything to do really, but his distribution was good. He was he was solid in everything he did, and he had a good element of control. He seemed a lot more comfortable, probably because he's got those 3 ahead of him now, and directly he's got Agbadou in front of him. So really good performance from him. And you've got to give him a 9 out of 10. He's got a clean sheet.
Yeah, I can't argue with that, and Paul agrees as well. Tyler, let's talk about the back three. Obviously, the reintroduction to Totti. Now, obviously, I'm speaking to you about Totti because it's good for comical value, and we have to appreciate that Totti has started 3 games under Vitor Pereira, and Wolves have won each game. They've won 3-0, 2-0, and 2-0 with Totti's inclusion. Clean sheet, clean sheet, clean sheet. We laugh and we joke. Yes, he can be erratic, but Wolves at the moment are a much better side with Totti Gomez in it.
Yeah. I think you're giving all 3 centre halves a 9 for me. And you talk about Totti, and his inclusion was massive, and we were desperate to get him back.
It frees up some it frees up Aït-Nouri for me.
Yeah, it does a lot. It does loads. It gives you natural balance. It gives you pace, athleticism. But I'd like to put the focus on Matt Doherty from that back three, because I think that's his best game I've seen in a Wolves. Certainly since the
as a defender for sure.
Morgan Rogers is the form player in the moment in the Premier League, in that he didn't get a kick. He had the one chance second half, didn't he, the Sarr save, but I've never seen Rogers that quiet. And Ramsey, and they get runners that side. And Doherty was outstanding, like really good. And it would have raised some eyebrows when he was selected over Bueno, but
justified.
He answered those critics, and it just looked good. It just looked right, didn't it? You've got a right-sided right centre-back, you've got a left-sided left centre-back, and you've got an absolute monster in the middle that is just attacking everything. You just look so much better for it, don't you? And, there'll be talk later about, do we buy centre-back? Is anyone coming in? Keep those 3 there. We look okay for a bit, don't we? And you're right on Totti, whether it's by luck or judgment. When he's played under Vitor, we've had 3 clean sheets. The flip side to that is he's also played in a lot of other games where we've shipped loads of goals, but he obviously buys into what the manager's getting him to do. And, we know he's got limitations. We know what they are. And I think we said today, didn't we? I don't think he's the solution if we want to get back to where we've been. But for where we are at the moment, he's absolutely worthy of a place in that side. And he was brilliant.
Yeah, I think he's completely ideal to a left side of a 3, because he was involved with the first goal. The way he's got up and he's strided forward, he's managed to feed it in, and that
did it a few times as well.
That was part of the slick move. And when you've got, as Vitor said, he wants his players to be free. And this is the only thing that probably Doherty isn't going to be able to do going forward. If you've got an athletic centre back that's comfortable on the ball that can push it forward, they almost become a fullback, and then you're so overlooked. You're almost 3 on that side of the pitch then, whether it's left or right. So, yeah, absolutely fantastic. And I would agree. I think the back 3 were pretty much faultless. Now, I think you have to be like a magician to get a 10, but I think them 3 are 9s across the board. Would you agree, Nocky?
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with anything anyone said. I thought they were all excellent.
Nocky,
and you've kept out a team that score a lot of goals, haven't you? You've kept
out an international, and one of the hottest young number 10s in the Premier League at the moment, and they've barely had a sniff. So, yeah, credit to those. Going on to the wing-backs, Nocky, Nelson Semedo and Ryan Aït-Nouri. Now, I think their performances for me, Nocky, has gone under the radar because of how good Agbadou, how good Agbadou, Andre, Bellegarde, their performances were good. But the wing-backs, again, I think they hardly put a foot wrong. And it was well, I would almost say faultless from the pair of them.
I think if I was going to sum them up in one word, it'd be disciplined. They were absolutely disciplined. They supported the attack when they needed to. They kept the shape, especially in the second half when we were under pressure. They gave us an out ball. I think the way that we played in midfield with maybe Sarabia dropping back into that 10 position on occasion allowed us to advance down that side and gave Semedo a little bit of space to play into. But I thought they were excellent. I can't fault them at all. I was all for swapping Aït-Nouri for Rodrigo Gomez, but he was brilliant. We were just so solid and so organised and so disciplined, and it just worked, didn't it? So again, you're an 8 or a 9 again, aren't you, because of the performance? Yeah,
Tyler. I think Nocky summed up that perfectly well. the left wing back defended, he attacked. I mean, we know obviously Aït-Nouri is a little bit more gifted going forward, but Samadi on the other side defensively. And credit to these guys. And we talked about, we were concerned about Ramsey, particularly his athleticism. Wolves really stifled Villa, and the wing backs have to take credit for that as well.
Yeah, I'd knock his right in his assessment of them. They were just very good, weren't they? Very disciplined, very solid, offered things in both halves of the pitch. Aït-Nouri, we saw a bit of his magic, but we also saw the better side of his defensive game. Yeah, eights for both, really. I'm fully in agreement with what Nocky said about them both.
And again, I'm not going to get too carried away, but Totti, he's better next to Aït-Nouri, and Aït-Nouri's better next to Totti. That's a pairing that when Wolves have got, it just looks better. So, Tyler, moving on to the centre midfield, we know all about Andre. I thought he was solid. He cleaned it very well. He knew his position. Very, very good footballer. Great to have him. Neat and tidy. Does what he does. Protects the defence. Bellegarde had a lot of criticism on this show, but one member of the podcast has said, I'd love to see him in centre midfield in particular. And Jean-Ric Bellegarde dropped in a man-of-the-match performance that nobody was expecting.
Well, yeah, and I think that includes the manager, doesn't it? So I think he was a bit nervous about putting him in there. And I think he said something along the lines of he was small in stature, but he was a giant on the pitch today. And I think that was just a good way to sum him up, because I mean, he's probably half the size of, was it Onana that came on? You look at them, so you think, crikey, but he wasn't bothered or put off by that second half. I thought the way he started the game was unbelievable, like really, really good.
Yeah, he was possessed, wasn't he?
He got the crowd going, yeah, like you said, those tackles, and he was happy to receive the ball from the centre halves. He was happy to get beyond the striker. I mean, we've been, you like you said, you can't get carried away because it's one game, but we've been begging and begging and begging for a centre midfielder, and has there been a solution there all along? You know, if you throw in a centre midfielder, right wing, left wing, wing back, you're not going to see the best of him, are you? And, you know, credit to him, he's obviously above Doyle in the pecking order. I can't fault that performance. That's as good as I've seen and in centre midfield and for Wolves recently. And Andre the same. I think he probably went about his work a little bit quieter, but I thought he was as effective as Bellegarde. And yeah, if you're giving it a score, for me, they're both 9s, and you could argue Bellegarde's a 10 for getting the goal. I thought he was that good.
I don't recall Bellegarde doing anything wrong that whole game. And this is a guy that I understand that we do criticise him, and if he's playing left, he's playing right, he's playing 10, he's playing somewhere else. And I know people have said, in France he was playing as part of a 3. I think Vitor said it. But if you look at his stats, the majority of his career has actually been in centre midfield. And the level of performance he produced, and as you guys said, he set the tempo, and then the tempo got the crowd going, and then we were buzzing. And then, I don't know if it's because we've been starved of this, and I'm not being disrespectful to Andre or João Gomez or Tommy Doyle. We're not used to a centre midfielder busting a ball to get into the box, to get behind the centre-back onto a run. We're not used to seeing that. So now we may have discovered, actually, we've got another option here, and he looks like a genuine option. Yes, I'm not going to get overexcited, but I need to praise him. We need to praise him because he's gone into a position he's not played. He's been at Wolves now what's he been there 2 years now? Have I got that right? About 2 years? That was a faultless performance from Bellegarde. And does that mean Wolves don't sign another one? Well, I hope not, because we need someone with more physical stature in there as well. A big footballing sort of number 6. But guys, Bellegarde, man of the match by a country mile, and that says a lot because there was a lot of good performances.
We've been really missing that player, haven't we? We used to have one in the Championship, and he wouldn't get in this team, obviously. But Dave Edwards used to make those runs from midfield and burst through into the area in front of the striker and just pull people across a bit. We haven't had anyone who's done that for such a long time. And it wasn't just his runs, it was, the couple of balls he played through. He put Guedes through when he probably should have scored, and he won a tackle which ended up putting Guedes through again. It was just an absolutely phenomenal performance, and I didn't really think he had that in him. But as you rightly said, you've been calling for him to have a bash in centre midfield to see what he can do. And it's one game, so you can't get too excited, but it was it was a really.
He set himself a high bar, Nocky, hasn't he? He's got a problem next game because I'm not sure if he's going to beat that.
We were all terrified, weren't we, because of their Villa midfield. That's their strongest area of the pitch, is their midfield. So you're coming into it without João Gomez. I think someone put up in the comments that the biggest compliment you can give is that we didn't miss Gomez, and we didn't miss him. And Bellegarde gave us more in terms of attacking options up there, because normally when it's Gomez or Andre, they're both fantastic players, but they'll win the ball and they'll look to get rid of the ball. They play players through, and every so often you'll see Gomez advance a little bit towards the edge of the area or support the attack. But he just got his head down and run, and Villa couldn't track him. They couldn't handle him at all. It was a really excellent display.
Yeah, and I know we'll come on to it. We were chatting before, weren't we? And if you're adding him as a genuine midfield option, like we were saying, I'm not too fussed if Wolves don't buy a centre midfielder. If he's capable of doing that on a more consistent basis, being linked to players like Josh Brownhill, for example, he's not going to get in a Bellegarde in that position.
No way.
So I think we just need to be a bit. We've sort of all said it. We think the players are good enough, aren't we? You know, we think they're good enough to not be where they are, and maybe it's time for them to prove it a little bit. And Bellegarde is one of those. It's great that we've seen what we saw yesterday, but now can you kick on, keep hold of your shirt, and go again and again and again? And I'd rather give those players the opportunity to do that rather than a Josh Brownhill coming in on loan or whatever. Let's use what we've got sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. This is episode 120 of the Wolves Report with Mark Knott, Chris Tyler, and myself, Ryan Lester. We talked about the game and just going through the player ratings. Let's go on to the forward three. Tyler, you've been waiting this moment for a long time. Tell me about Pablo Sarabia.
Well, his ability's never, ever been in question, has it? Well, not for me anyway, but he was a bit wound up yesterday, wasn't he? He was a bit angry.
That was a better version of him, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what you want to see. And, ability-wise, he's probably Wolves' best player if you're talking about the way technique and
in terms of opening the door, there's no one
how he plays, yeah. Obviously, he hasn't got the legs, and sometimes he doesn't have the desire or the passion. He's a bit of a luxury player, isn't he? But I loved it when he clapped the lino because it just seemed to get him wound up. He didn't like it, and it's petulant, and you don't want your players doing that. But he was angry yesterday, and I thought he was brilliant. And the ball for the goal that we talked about is class. It really is a great pass. He gets in the little pockets, he gets in the space. He's not a winger, as we know. We sort of better playing with those two number 10s, but again, you could argue, apart from the cameo against Spurs where he scored that wonder goal, is that his best? Well, there you go. Is that his best game in a Wolves shirt? It probably is, isn't it? But again, it's like I've just said, I'm on Bellegarde. One game's not enough. Do it consistently. And, he's been a surprise pick in the team, and the manager's obviously seen something in him that he likes. So if he can keep playing to that level, again, Wolves are a better team when he's in it. But it's a big if. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, for when he was selected at Chelsea, mobile, strong, athletic team, I didn't see the point. Again, against Arsenal, I was like, I don't really understand. He's justified his inclusion yesterday because we know the ability to open doors. We know the touch. We know the way he can sort of cut back, put through balls in, chip a ball. But as you said, the tenacity, the aggression, I haven't really seen that. And absolutely, you're back in the team next week. You've justified your inclusion. Nocky, Goncalo Gedge, probably the quietest of Wolves' front three, but played an important part. Found himself, really ran the lines well, got him behind, good touches, aggression. Thought he put a shift in, a big part of Wolves' win.
I'm not sure I agree he was the quietest. I thought Cunha was probably the quietest of the three, but he's probably redeemed himself with that goal. I really liked Guedes' performance. I thought his energy, the runs he made in behind, I don't think Villa could deal with him. I thought he was running through him. He was always an option for us, and he got himself into a position to have probably 2 one-on-ones, and then he had the shot that he should have scored when he was following up from Cunha.
I think John Rickner should have probably squared to him as well, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I'm surprised he didn't. He just lampooned it instead. But I really enjoyed his performance. I thought it was a an honest, hard-working display, and he seems like a player who's quite happy here now. He seems like he's found his feet, he's comfortable, and he's enjoying his football. So if he scores, he's probably a 10 out of 10 performance again because of the work rate and the movement and the effort he put into it. But for me, I thought he was really good, and we've maybe got stuck with Strand Larsen, as we've already spoke about earlier, that we keep having to play him, we keep flogging him to death, whereas that was something that Villa probably didn't know how to deal with because you had three players rotating and plenty of movement all over the front line. And if you can do that to teams in this division, you give yourself a real chance. So, yeah, really pleased with the display. I thought it was excellent.
Mikey Burrows, thank you for joining us. Evening, lads. First-time viewer, first-time commenter. Give Sarabia more credit. He's been out of the team and then injured. Playing his way into match fitness, and that's a fair point as well, Mikey. I mean, what I would say is Tyler's been a big fan of Sarabia's, and his ability has not been in question, but his inclusion in 2 physical games at Chelsea and Arsenal has. But we're all eating our words now because he was fantastic. He was a proper ratting performance as well as the quality. So yeah, Mikey, thank you for being part of the show.
Mikey's a legend as well, so nice to have him on board.
Absolutely. It finished Wolves 2, Aston Villa 0. Aston Villa said they were unlucky with a decision, but they were lucky it wasn't 4 or 5-0. Let's move on to some questions. And obviously, we talked about Matheus Cunha signing his new contract. Steve Phipps asks, thoughts on the reported 62.5 million release clause in Cunha's new contract? Feel it's a good 10 or 15 million short personally, but player power has been at the fore this last month. This is a really interesting one. Now, I don't think anything official has been released, but there obviously is a release clause. We don't know what it is. You would imagine there was a relegation clause. If I'm Cunha, I want a relegation clause. I can understand that. But a summer price of 62.5 million, for me, feels like Villa, Arsenal, whoever, they could pay that in the summer and nip him away. For me, that feels low. Nocky.
Yeah, I mean, I could understand that kind of release clause if it is as per the relegation. He goes for that because you're not going to command more than that in the Championship. I'd be very disappointed if that's the figure that's been agreed because you're definitely going to lose him, aren't you?
For what? So just jumping into that, Nocky. He's contracted to Wolves. We're not going to lose him like anytime soon for nothing. There's no release as far as I'm aware. So why would Wolves agree that? What's to the benefit of Wolverhampton Wanderers? Is it solely to settle the player to get him focused on the rest of the season? Granted, he's been brilliant and he deserves a new contract. But 62.5 million. I mean, this is just a figure that was put out by one of the outlets. I don't think it's been confirmed anywhere. But this to me feels really low. What have Wolves got to benefit from the player signing a new contract?
Well, it makes no sense to do it, does it? Because you could sell him for that in the summer anyway and more. So if you're throwing in a release clause, it's probably going to be less than his value at the moment just to get him to sign it. I don't understand why we do that. I mean, release clauses are complicated, aren't they? There can be caveats in there. There can be different elements to them. So the 62.5 might be accurate, but it might be based on us being relegated or some of the stipulations that need to be achieved. So I think until you've got that figure and the official figure, I'm a little bit sceptical that's probably the bang on amount because it just seems like a really low figure to put in. It's less than I would have expected for him if we'd have sold him now. And if you go into the summer and you've got a little bit more power behind, you've still got a couple of years left on his deal, you'd want at least 70, 75 million, especially when you compare him to a John Duran who's just gone for 70 odd million euros, and he's not on the same planet as Cunha for me. So yeah, I'm a little bit sceptical of that. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that if Wolves have agreed to that, then it's very disappointing and very poor on our part.
Yeah, your take on that, Tyler?
Yeah, I agree with what you both said, but we don't know the facts, do we? We don't know.
I did try today to find out, but I couldn't get an answer. And understandably, it's difficult, and it might be sensitive information. I did try, but yeah.
Well, the last podcast I came on with you told everybody that he's leaving anyway. So
well, I've got a question. I've got a question about that, and I didn't tell everyone. I said it was more likely, but I'm not going to duck that question. And thank you for throwing me underneath the bus. But anyway, who needs friends, eh? Richard asks, looks likely we finally know where Jean-Luc Bellegarde plays, but how do we get him in with the current setup? I reckon Richard's trying to say when Joe Gomez is now back, how do we get everyone in? Well, for Blackburn, I've got to be honest. I'm not changing the team. I don't care who's fit or who's signed. You cannot drop anybody from that performance, Tyler.
I think we will see a couple of changes with it being
Maybe the goalkeeper.
But I'm old school. If you play well like that, you're in the team for me next week. Joe Gomez is outstanding, but Wolves fans, we seem quite obsessed with like having the first 11, but it's such a squad game these days. I mean, look at Villa's midfield options. They were missing. Kamara's playing centre-back. Onana comes on. They're missing Ross Barkley. They've still got Tillmans, McGinn. Yeah. You need quality players and you need numbers in those positions. And who's to say you don't play Bellegarde for 60 minutes and then Gomez for 30? Do you know what I mean? It's that sort of game.
The other way around, yeah.
That's where we're at. Villa made 4 changes. We've not been in a position where we can do that with the centre forward, with the centre midfielders, with the centre halves. You know, we need a squad of players. So he keeps his shirt for me. You've fully earned that shirt for Blackburn and Liverpool for me, not a problem. And to have someone like Joe Gomez on the bench waiting to come on, if someone has an off day, that's when you bring them on. So for me, like I said, it's one game, but he's a genuine contender for that centre midfield space.
It's actually level of performance. We've got some problems, but we love positive problems. We've not had them for a long time. Another one for you, Tyler, just quickly. Bally asks, question for Quiz. Is Totti the greatest ever wardrobe you've seen falling down the stairs?
What a player. I mean, I think Bawley's winking there because I think he has a similar opinion on him as myself. But again, if someone's putting in performances like that, it only benefits all of us, doesn't it? And I'm happy to eat my humble pie. But yeah, like I said, he's good for the here and now, but I'm not sure he takes us to that next level.
Well, let's enjoy the here and now. Let's stay in the Premier League and let's see where we go from there. Bawley, thank you for being part of the show as well, Richard and Steve. This one's for you, Nocky. Greg asks, they have to go all out to back VP. Do you think there's a chance of signing 3 by tomorrow at 11 p.m, centre back, centre mid and forward? I mean, I don't see that, Greg. But Nocky, your take on that question?
There's more chance of me waking up in the morning with an afro, I think, than there is of us signing 3 players.
And we're not talking about a back sack and crack either.
I think we'll get a midfielder. I think there's an outside chance we get a centre back, although it does feel a bit like we've put all our eggs in the Danso basket. I think maybe 2 at a push. I'd expect 1, which I think will be a centre midfielder. I don't see us going out for a forward unless something drops into our lap. Maybe an Evan Ferguson, so that kind of player who want to get out and get some football. But yeah, I think we'll get a midfielder. Maybe a centre back, but I'm not overly confident.
Here's a question, boys: if you could only have 1 of them, what position are you strengthening?
Centre back.
Centre back.
I'm forward all day long.
But I can understand why, but goals haven't been too much of a problem this season, have we? It's been keeping them out the other end.
The goals are drying up. They weren't. Wolves could have had 4 or 5 yesterday, not a problem. And that's without our top scorer. Our second top scorer.
But you're an injury away defensively again, aren't you? I mean, look what happened when Totti went out. If you were to lose Agbadou and you then back to Totti, Doherty and Bueno, you're in the same position, aren't you? I think we've got more numbers in attacking areas than we have in defensive areres, more effective numbers.
And on that then, so you'd agree that centre mid, for me, is the lowest priority?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't disagree. And I agree with what you said earlier. If you can't bring in quality players who are ready to affect the first team, there's no point making them deals. Josh Brownhill, for me, he's purely a number. He's not going to improve us. That's no disrespect.
It's bargain hunting because Josh Brownhill's contract's out in the summer and you've had a number of... Tommy Doyle, I don't think he fancies Tommy, but I've got to say, Tommy was ratting around and did really well when he came on. Bellegarde, he's shown when he played in his best position, he's really good. We've got Boubacar, who was back in training and got flu. If Mario doesn't get sold, is he going to be integrated back into the squad? For me, that's an area I'm kind of leaning towards Tyler. That's probably the least of my priorities. If you're saying give me 1 player, I'm going to say centre back because I agree with Nocky. To play this style of football, to have the athleticism and the strength and the pace of Totti and Agbadou in there, it allowed Wolves to do that press and squeeze on Villa in the first half. You can't do that with Santiago, Bueno and slow up. No disrespect, you can't really play that kind of style of play. You need the athleticism of them in there. So yeah, for me, it's just 1 centre back. forgot I was hosting the show. That was answering your own question. I've had lots of questions and I can't answer them, but this is the most important one that Tyler make the fun out of. Well, not the most important one, but Matt asked me, "You articulate yourself brilliantly and are often the voice of reason. Thank you very much." Last week you said you heard that Matthias Cunha was more likely to leave than to stay in January. Was this accurate or dodgy info? Well, a couple of things.
I told you not to put it out.
That is not true, boys. You couldn't wait. What I would say, Matt, is I do get lots of information, and I'm quite privileged to get the things I hear. And I don't share hardly any of the stuff because I don't want to speculate. This is someone that consistently gives me really good information. And would you rather me share the things that I can than that I can't? Because at the time, he believed that Wolves were going to sell Matthias Cunha. Now, as I said at the end of that tweet, I hope I'm wrong and I hope he signs a new contract. So I'm happy. I want to be proved wrong in that situation because I want Wolves to keep their best player. But what I would say is, looking through January, looking at the evidence, did those performances look like a player that was staying or he'd had his head turned? And also, there was rumours of the contract being signed in December. Why has he only signed the contract now? So for me, what I understand is the agent was really, really pushing for it. That didn't happen. As far as I understand, there wasn't a solid offer from anywhere else. But Matt, I appreciate your question. I would rather front up and answer those things because I share what I can and what I think is appropriate and not answer what I don't think is. So Matt, and obviously Tyler's Mickey taking, no problem at all. I'll share what I can and feel free to ask. And that's why I put it up because I'm not going to duck from that. But I appreciate it.
I think just on that question, Matt, I think you'd be very, very naive to think that Cunha wouldn't have took a move if it had come in. I mean, why has he got a release clause in his contract? It's because he's already thinking about his next move. And that's no criticism to Matthias Cunha. He's got no emotional attachment to this club. I know he loves being here. I'm sure he loves the football club as well. But he's not emotionally invested as a supporter would be. He didn't sign his deal until 2 days before the window because obviously at that point you're never getting a deal of that size.
Wolves aren't going to sell at that point when they can't play.
And you're never going to, no 62, 63 million pound players.
As our friend Mark Cole says, there's evidence there, isn't there? There's evidence, I think.
Yeah, he's absolutely. It was probably more his agent pushing for it. But if an offer had come in, if Arsenal had come in with a solid offer of 65, 70 million
on January the 1st,
yeah, he would have gone. There's no question about it. So yes, it was good information. It was accurate information. It turned because no one put in a big offer. But if he was that determined,
there was actually no bid as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, he'd have signed the big 5-year deal with no release clause in it. The fact there's a release clause in it tells you everything you need to know.
Matt, I appreciate your question, and I hope you can understand that fronting up to it, you understand my information was sincere. Appreciate that. This is episode 120 of the Wolves Report with Chris Tyler, Mark Knock, and myself, Ryan Lester. We are running a little bit into overtime. We'll have to pay the boys double time now. They've both got to get into bed soon with their jammies on and their little wolfie teddies. Ding dong, the transfer clock. Gentlemen, there was a question briefly about getting 3 in. I don't see that. We've talked about what we prefer. Knocky, just quickly tell me, what are you expecting by 11 o'clock tomorrow? What's the minimum requirement for you?
I think it'd be very naive to think we can go with what we've got. I mean, we've won 1 in 6. We've won 5 games all season.
One great performance.
Yeah, we've won 5 games all season with this squad. So the squad isn't good enough at this moment in time, in my opinion. What I would like, I'd still like 3 players, 1 in midfield, 1 defence and 1 in attack. I don't think we'll get that. I feel like we might get a midfielder in purely on the basis that I've just got a sneaky suspicion we're already in those conversations right now. So I can see that happening. Centre-back wise, I think we've put all our eggs in the Danzo basket. So unless something happens quite late, I don't think that's going to emerge. So I think we'll get 1 in at a push, 1.5, potentially with that being a loan, which is slightly easy to do. But I don't see anything more than that. 1's probably a realistic estimate.
Tyler?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Yeah. 1, I think, and if we get 2, it'll be like Christmas all over again. I think you're right, aren't you? That extra centre back. I tweeted it after I think it was at the Leicester game. I said 3 new centre backs and Wolves will be fine. I think we've got 1, and Toti's looking like a new one in a way. That's probably the key one, isn't it?
All right, Jez.
I know, but we just got
like a new signing.
Yeah, but they are right. You know, he was yesterday, wasn't it? It was like having a new signing.
He freed out Nori. We had pace. You put Agbadou in the middle. He dominates Watkins. His inclusion makes Wolves better at the moment, no doubt.
So, yeah, 1 I think we'll get, and maybe 2. But like I said, I only want players that are going to come in and improve that 11. That's all I'm interested about. And if there isn't anybody that we can get that is, then don't do it. That'll be my opinion.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't really. If there's a couple for the future, I always understand that. I'm always for trying to get. I mean, obviously the likes of Lima and Rodrigo. Rodrigo's a little bit closer than Lima, but those kind of players, I'm always fine with because it's a good investment. They're proven elsewhere. They're exciting. They're young. No problem. In terms of spending real money now, there's no point putting a filler in there. If you're going to sign a first team player, he needs to improve. Not a squad. There's absolutely no point. But yesterday, I hopefully didn't give Jeff or any of the footballing custodians reason to think actually we'll be saying now. We may be, but I certainly don't want to roll the dice on that. This is episode 120 of the Wolves Report with Chris Tyler, Mark Knock, and myself, Ryan Lester. Sunday afternoon at 12:30, Wolves are in the 4th round of the FA Cup away to Blackburn Rovers. There's a week before, a week after. Tyler, are you changing the team? Are you mixing it up? How are we going to go?
Yeah, I think so. I wouldn't be going major changes. He obviously went strong at Bristol City, didn't he? So it's obviously a competition he's taken seriously. But, again, do a couple of those fringe players get opportunities? Flip side of that is, do you rest your key men? Because obviously the running's more important, isn't it, potentially? But I'd be tempted to make a couple, but nothing too drastic. Doyle might get a run, although Wang, we're not his biggest fan, might get a run. Pedro Lima, Rodrigo, you think could get minutes, but I'm happy with either argument. I'm happy to go sort of full strength, get the job done and come home, and I'm happy to give those fringe players a bit of time as well. So for me, I'm okay either way, but I think he'll go with a pretty strong team based on what he did at Bristol City.
Knocky, there's a week either side of the games. There's no midweek games. Winning is a really good habit. Now, I understand that you want to keep certain members of the squad happy, maybe the goalkeeper department. But for me, other than that, I would go the same 11 again because I think you need to keep momentum going. You need to keep the harmony going. And I think if we've managed to click a system and a selection of the best performance we've seen all season, I want to keep it going. I don't think the keeper changes it that much, but I think the rest from me stays the same. Your take?
Yeah, it's 12:30 kickoff as well, isn't it? So I'm leaving straight after the podcast. I think I'm not changing much, to be honest. I can see Gomez coming back in maybe for Andre and then try Andre and Bellegarde together. Huang could potentially come in for Cunha or for Guedes, but I think he goes relatively strong. I don't see why you'd.
But aren't we going to suffer if you don't play Cunha for 2 weeks or Sarabia for 2 weeks? For these players that are in form that have played well, surely you want to keep the engine running.
Yeah, but I think I don't see him going with the same 11. I do think there'll be a couple of changes. I think he'll want to have a look at players in different positions and see how it works. And so I don't expect wholesale changes. The back three probably stay the same because I think he'll want to get some consistency. That seems to be the three he wants to go with. So I don't see that changing. The midfield, I do think he'll keep Bellegarde there, but I do see Gomez coming in. Otherwise, it's 3 weeks without a game for him. So I don't think there'll be mega changes, but he may rotate that front line slightly. But I wouldn't be surprised if he went exactly the same because it's winning's a habit and it's a habit we need to get into. And then we go to Liverpool the week after that, don't we? So I think he'll probably be looking at a solid foundation for the rest of the season. He seems to want to stick with his system. He likes certain personnel in certain places. So I don't expect wholesale changes at all. But I do think we'll change the goalkeeper. That's what I'm pretty sure about.
There's a funny argument, isn't there, in a way that are you better off going stronger against Blackburn than you are Liverpool? Potentially.
Well, you're in the 5th round with a win, aren't you?
A really good point.
You could be going to the 5th round of the Cup, or you get beat at Liverpool, which is probably going to happen anyway. Not saying that you write games off, of course not, but they're a machine.
If you focus on the more winnable games, then that logic absolutely makes sense. But then you go into the Mick McCarthy territory when you go away to Man United and you go for someone's birthday. You spend a load of money, you book a day off work, and you play the reserves after you beat Tottenham. By the way, this was a road trip the three of us had under Mick McCarthy when he changed the whole team and the away end sang 52 quid to watch the reserves. Fair point, but we did beat Burnley the week after.
But that's the difference, though, isn't it? We had midweek games, and we've got 7 days now, and then we've got 7 days after. So there's no reason to rest it. What you don't want to do is throw your momentum away slightly by losing this and then losing at Liverpool, and then you go to Bournemouth on the back of.
Is it straight to extra time and penalties? Is the replay?
Yeah, I don't think there's replays. I might be wrong, but there's no point throwing your momentum away. You may as well go and try and win another game, and then you're on the back of 2 wins going into the Liverpool game. Then, and maybe you can make things difficult for them. So I don't see any way he makes wholesale changes. And plus, we haven't got a big enough squad to probably do that, have we?
Absolutely not. One thing I would say to everybody, and I'd say this to me, Tyler Tanaka, let's enjoy the next week. This win has been a long time coming. We beat a localish rival with a brilliant performance. Let's enjoy it and take the most of it now. I know I've had some fun on social media, but we don't know when our next win's going to be. It's been a tough season. It's been ugly. So let's just enjoy that now. Currently got 1,939 live viewers. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for those catching up. If you like what you see, press like, follow, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, X, whatever we're calling it these days. And again, on Spotify, that'll be very much appreciated. Almost at the end of the show, we always do the predictions. Wolverhampton Wanderers away to Blackburn Rovers in the 4th round of the FA Cup. Chris Tyler, your first scorer and correct score, please.
I think if we go strong, we'll just have too much for them, won't we? So
Don't get haunted by Danny Bath. We don't need that.
2-0 to Wolves, and the man of the moment, Bellegarde again.
Get in there. Nocky.
3-1 Wolves and Sarabia.
Lovely stuff. I'm going to go with Agbadou and 3-0 Wolves. Thank you to Chris Tyler. Thank you to Mark Knock. This has been episode 120 of the Wolves Report. Of the Wolves.